Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we will continue to read the updates from the story about a man whose wife left him for weeks, then admitted to cheat on him because she felt bored with him. But now she wants him back. If you haven't seen part 1 yet, I highly recommend watching it on our channel first to fully understand the story and its progression. Let's get started. Update 4. This will be rather anticlimactic, but apologies for the length. I just need to get this out. Terrible weekend, but my wife came home yesterday. A decent amount of build-up to it as this week went on. Any prior time she'd first enter the doorway, I'd give her a hug and kiss. But this time there was just this horribly uncomfortable awkwardness between us. She actually came to me and tried to give me a hug before saying anything, but I turned away. Unreal, just as if nothing had happened. After she settled, I naturally asked her to tell me everything, and she again reiterated that she's not ready. We had spoken on the phone earlier in the week, same result. I insisted that the only condition of her moving back home was that she loved the family enough to explain why she's been absent for going on 3 weeks. But she just repeated that she just wasn't ready for that. It took a lot to not scream at her, but I took a couple of deep breaths and tried to compose myself. I failed, and after the first of many very long pauses, I just blurted out that she'd been having an affair for over 4 years with this coworker of hers, planned on leaving me for this other man, ghosted her whole family, and now walks through the door without fulfilling the one single condition that I had asked for and that I wanted a divorce. I guess this is when things got weird. Her body language and facial expression made it obvious she had no idea how much I knew about her affair. She glanced at me wide-eyed, then just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the floor. Said nothing. Just stoic. I was expecting anything and everything but this. Maybe an emotional tirade, maybe a confession, maybe she'd start screaming at me, yelling, blaming the affair on me. Maybe a serious toned, "Okay, let's sit down and talk this out." But not this reaction. We honestly must have stood in the kitchen for 5 minutes in absolute silence. It was just the strangest moment I've ever experienced. She clearly didn't know what to say, and neither did I. I had read all of your comments and advice on my situation. I even took notes. I sat in front of a mirror and had prepared myself for all possible scenarios that this confrontation might present, except this one. So I eventually decided right then and there to map out everything I knew about her affair. Maybe dumb of me, but I proceeded to tell her everything that I knew, admittedly adding in my own assumptions about several things. How she met AP, her sister's involvement, what went on during COVID, etc. She just stared at the floor the entire time. I got angrier as I went along because she said nothing, but I did everything I could not to raise my voice or get obscene. I finally composed myself. Then there was another lengthy, awkward silence. Then anger switched to sadness at the realization of everything. I then softly asked her what I did to push her away. Did she ever love me, and was he AP worth it? She said nothing, didn't budge, didn't move, just nothing from her at all. No tears, no apology, no yelling, no explanation. Just stood there, with her head down, nothing. This hurt. This hurt maybe worse than D-Day did. I stood there staring at her, not sure I would have moved, but then things got worse. Of course, our girls were eavesdropping on the entire encounter. I'm just so incredibly stupid. I've been dedicating so much energy into putting them first in their needs over the past couple of weeks, but I got emotional and didn't give a single thought to their whereabouts once I confronted my wife. So our oldest daughter stormed downstairs and lashed out, a lot of pent-up anger on her part. My wife quickly just ran upstairs and locked the bedroom door. That's where we're at now. I heard my wife crying most of the night last night until I fell asleep. Only our youngest has tried talking to her. The rest of us have avoided her. If I can get the courage up, I'm going to suggest she stay with her sister until we're able to finalize the divorce, but this is still her home too. It's just going to be miserable if we all have to cohabitate with her. I was wrong about my wife, and all of you were correct. I was wrong about all of our years together, wrong about all of the memories, the life-changing moments. I was convinced she'd drop to her knees and beg forgiveness. I was so convinced that she would rehash everything from the last 4 years and unload the truth to absolve her guilt. This woman literally drove back to a farmer's market once when she realized she'd been given $10 too much in change, but we're not worth it to her. I'm not worth it to her. Maybe I never was. Now what? Today was so uncomfortable at home. The girls and I tried to carry on as we had for the past 2 weeks, but obviously that's not possible. I just want to fast forward past all this, past the divorce, past the awkward conversations, past the inevitable arguments and fights, past the drama. To those that have had to cohabitate with their WWS, how did you manage that, especially with kids? I know this is just the beginning. I keep reading all of the posts that promise it gets better, but I'm so far away from that. There's not a single moment when I don't want to scream. Right now, I'm trying very, very hard to maintain a stable mind for the girls, but I don't know if I can keep it up for 3 months. School will start well before all of this is over, too. I guess this is my life now. Thank you all for taking such a vested interest in me. I don't know if the worst is ahead or behind us, but I appreciate any and all you can offer to get me through the next phase. Update 5. I'm in a bad way, and I've been in a bad way since my wife came home. Since I learned of her affair, I've been trying to fake it as best as possible for my daughters. I try to say the right things, think the right things, but tonight I have to admit the truth. As many of you post daily, it comes in waves, but I was hit with a big one tonight and lost my composure a bit. Divorce is filed, but my wife still has yet to hire a lawyer. And again, I'm trying to be as patient and delicate in this regard as possible, as I'm starting to see hope for an uncontested divorce that we mainly handle ourselves. But after tonight, I don't know. We've been cohabitating during the week, and my wife goes to her sister's Friday nights and returns home Sunday nights, as she works very close to our family home, but her sister is an hour away if there's no traffic. For the past couple of weeks, it's been this routine of mostly avoidance, as myself and the girls are trying to carry on normally while my wife kind of just stays to herself, though there are casual interactions every evening. Except that my oldest daughter and my wife aren't speaking after a couple of bad blow-ups. It's for the best right now. Lately, I've been hearing much of all of your advice along with things I've read. I work very hard on my self-discipline around my wife, and though it takes all my strength and willpower, I've been short and indifferent toward her when we briefly talk, though always polite and respectful. Until tonight. The last couple of Fridays, she's come home from work, gotten a few things together, and taken off for her sister's for the weekend, before I'm even home from work. But not tonight. She was waiting in the kitchen for me when I got home tonight. I tried to just walk past, but she lightly grabbed me by the hand and asked me if this is how I was going to treat her, just because she's not ready to talk to me about her affair, which, by the way, is the very first time she's so much as mentioned a single word about her cheating since this all blew up almost a month ago. I promise you, I tried to just bite my tongue and walk away, but our daughters weren't home at the time, and rage built up in me, and then I unloaded my every vice and every pain, every hurt, ache, rage, misery. I unloaded everything on her. I can't even tell you how long I went on. I lost all concept of time. I did raise my voice at times, got a little animated and loud. I just broke down and told her how broken I am and the agony that I'm in every day. Everything I've been holding back, everything that's been tormenting me. I mean, I could make this post 4,000 words long if I tried to recount everything I said. Once I started, I wasn't going to stop. Of course, I cried, got emotional again. I was so freaking angry at myself. Afterward, I've been doing so well, damn it. She got to me. I let her get to me. I knew it would happen. I knew it was disgusting. It's been building for a while, and there's only so much I can vent into the waiting room while also trying to be a good parent. Well, also for the first time, my wife actually broke down and got emotional. Surprisingly, she started sobbing uncontrollably. Regrettably, this made me happy to see her hurting in the same way that I was. I wish that I didn't care, but there was some satisfaction in seeing her break down finally, like there was actually someone in there with an ounce of compassion. Also, surprisingly, she mumbled apologies repeatedly during my explosion. She was kind of ugly crying, and that's all she would say. "I'm so sorry." But in the end, I left the kitchen before she could compose herself enough to say anything else. I told her to please leave me alone. So that happened. She lingered around the kitchen for a while before leaving again for her sister's house. The girls got home about a half hour later and knew something had happened. Hard to hide it, but I wasn't ready to talk about anything and don't think they need to know about this, do they? The two youngest have been doing much better, and I don't want to hinder their progress. Telling my oldest about this would just add more fuel to her fire, which I also don't want. I hate this so much. I hate it. I should have held it together. I should have just given my wife the cold shoulder and walked right past her. I don't know now. Thinking back, it feels like she was just trying to start a conversation about her affair, but didn't know how and obviously didn't get very far because I exploded. I've started to actually worry about her. I know many of you will criticize me for this, but I don't want her to come to any harm. She's been isolated and alone with her thoughts, with nearly everyone turning their back on her. You can say she deserves it, and that's true, but she's still a human being and the mother of my kids. What a setback for me. Really disappointed in myself. Sorry for another long rant. I called my brother and ranted to him too. Man, I'll try to start again Monday. I'm only human. It actually felt good to vent on her. But now, of course, the regret is hitting me. Should I text my wife or just leave it be? I'm such a mess, but thanks for listening. Thanks for offering me the support I need to get through all of this. And thank you for all of the advice. In the midst of the chaos, we have all started therapy, so that's something. But this is so incredibly hard, just so hard. Update 6. I know many of you have reached out to me, and I do appreciate the concern. Most of you are correct. Things aren't great, and I haven't had the chance to get online at all. I wanted to maybe take a break from the internet, but this week has me backpedaling horribly. It's just been awful. My wife hasn't really left me alone all week. Overly nice and continually apologizing for her affair, sobbing and then smothering me, knocking on my door at night wanting to talk. I've ignored her some, but talked when I was in the mood. I finally snapped at her Wednesday night, telling her to leave me alone. Then last night it happened. Just over a month since my soon-to-be ex-wife came back home after her affair blew up. And now as things have entered this uncomfortable cohabitating routine, she came into my room after the girls went to bed and asked to talk with me in private. Differently than she'd been approaching me all week. I fed at first, but eventually we actually went to the garage and sat in my car so as not to make the mistake of confrontation in front of the kids again. This is lengthy. Apologies. She told me everything. According to her, we were out there for almost 3 hours. I don't know how much to share. I was up all night listening to her sobbing again for several hours. I couldn't sleep. I cried too, then I'd get super angry and have to resist going in to scream at her, then cry, then anger, and on and on. Forgive me if I take a day or so to respond to anyone, but I need to get this off my chest and then try to sleep. It hasn't helped having my wife constantly apologizing and begging me for another chance all evening tonight too. I had to leave for a few hours just to get away from her. It is just so painful to be around her. Anyway, she was introduced to her AP by her sister well before co-dating, back about 5 years apparently, with zero romantic intentions. But he was a higher up at a company she wanted to work for and currently does, and he gave her an in. So her desire to change jobs was not based on her affair. But once she did change jobs, obviously, she had extra incentive. Once she got the job, AP began flirting with her. It started out as texting, then pictures and more texting, then became physical just before COVID hit. She confessed to her sister and wanted to come clean to me then, but decided to bury it and say nothing. Of course, my wife said she went NC with her AP soon after, but as long as lockdowns and restrictions were lifted, he reached back out to her, and she resumed talking to him until the physical side of the affair started up again. Once businesses went back to work, she claims to have ended the affair a couple of times out of guilt, but kept going back to him, so it never ended. Essentially, she actually included a lot of details, had a 5-page packet of handwritten notes of her affair timeline, read off the entire thing, answering questions along the way. She lied about weekend trips with the girls, she lied about traveling for work. She lied about traffic jams, about issues with her parents, about shopping trips, etc. Just as I suspected, and the list was extensive. So many lies that I just trusted her every word, never questioned anything, but they were just a front to be with him. Hearing it all just made me feel worse. Everyone was correct about that, but her affection never really dipped while all of this was going on. She never got distant like I read so often. Intimacy did change, but not enough to where I'd see red flags. Anyway, she admits falling in love with AP and wanting a life with him. He was older, divorced, and single, and promised her expensive things, vacations, and all the things he could do with her. She started fantasizing about escaping her responsibilities with the family and claimed the thrill of being with him was too much to resist. She talked about how bored she got with the daily routines of family life. She was incredibly candid, very emotional, and seemingly honest. I lost my composure and began crying midway through. It hurt to hear it all, as you'd expect. Of course, once she was finished with her confession, she told me how much she loved me and always has, and that she's willing to do any and everything to try and save the marriage. A lot of you predicted this would happen, but it all just seems so disingenuous to me, like it was rehearsed. I've been with this woman for well over half my life, and I can just tell when she's full of crap. Maybe I'm wrong, I guess it doesn't matter. But I composed myself better than last week. Still got angry and said a few not so nice things, including getting a jab in about how her AP was seeing multiple women and she was just one of many that he was willing to toss aside. That seemed to really upset her. A million things have gone through my brain when thinking about this moment, when she'd finally confess. All the one-liners I might throw at her or things I could say to hurt her back. Hundreds of responses that I couldn't think of in the emotional moment. The other night, but one thing I knew I would ask, and that was if AP was still alive and if she had to choose between him and me, who would she choose? She hesitated and then mumbled, "That's not fair." I pressed the issue, and then she eventually said she'd of course pick me. My response was that her hesitation was the reason I was divorcing her because she was lying again. She started sobbing, and that was the last she spoke. We sat in the car a while. She just kept sobbing, but I was tired, so I just told her that we're divorcing and we owe it to the girls to get along in a civil way, to be great parents and be present in their lives. I also added that after all the pain she'd put me through, I hope she was a good enough person to divorce fairly and amicably. That would prove she actually loved me. The last thing I said to her, I stole from somewhere else online. Please understand that I'm not a petty person and I did not purposely want to cause her pain. It just seemed a fitting end to it all. But I did 100% mean what I said and did. I leaned over and kissed her on the forehead and told her that I would have loved her forever, and then got out of the car and went to bed. That was it. Of course, I didn't sleep last night, and here I am, unable to sleep once again tonight. I don't know what happens now. Her opportunity to contest the divorce has come and gone, so I guess that's one good thing, but I haven't talked to my lawyer yet. I find myself crying again and sinking back into those depression and anger phases. It was very hard hearing everything last night, and in reality, I could have done without it all. Now that I know she could have lied and made it all up too, who knows? But it seemed to fit perfectly with everything I'd put together in the past month. So that's it for now. This is just never ending, it seems. I have a few good days, start feeling strong again, and then something else happens. It feels like it's been months and yet only days at the same time, but I'm going to try and sleep. Imagine the love of your life, the only woman you've ever loved, ever kissed, tells you she cheated on you for over 4 years because she was bored. Didn't fall out of love, didn't grow apart, didn't have any relationship issues or dead bedroom, nothing like that, just because she was bored. I don't know if that makes it worse or better. Thanks for reading and helping along the way. And that's the end of this story. What do you guys think about this whole situation? Let me know in the comments.